Excellent. Right on time. The training's over. Tomorrow we are leaving for Greece. A major operation is shaping up, so get ready, everyone.
1941. 11 countries in Europe were occupied by Italo-German forces. In the next few days, the German army entered Athens, thus completing the occupation of Greece. But the island of Crete was still under British control, and that significantly weakened Germany's control over the eastern Mediterranean. The need to capture the island became evident, but the British Navy's superiority made attacking from the sea impossible. With this in mind, the German command decided to launch a large-scale airborne assault. Paratroopers were ordered to land simultaneously in 4 areas of Crete, 3 of them being key airfields. Capturing the runways would allow them to land heavy armaments and the main body of the 5th Mountain Division for the next stage of the operation. The unit, led by Gunther Borg, a determined, tough and practical commander, was to play a crucial role in the drama about to unveil. His paratroopers form part of the forward echelon of the German assault near Malemi, a small town to the northwest of the island.
Our squad will operate to the north of Malemi. There's an airfield there, and its capture is vital to the success of the entire operation. It is surrounded by well-established anti-air defenses, so we will have to land on the coast and advance deeper into the island on foot. We'll be armed only with handguns during the flight, so after landing, we'll have to look for ammo and weapon crates dropped in the area. As soon as we have them, we need to launch an attack on British positions. First of all, we must capture the runway, which will allow Luftwaffe aircraft to land with reinforcements. After that, the capture of the entire island will just be a matter of time.
Move faster!
Unfortunately, we are having bad luck today. Strong winds have scattered the troops along the coast. The air forces are suffering heavy casualties, and our well-planned operation is falling apart. First of all, we must try to find the rest of our squad. The wind blew them right into British positions, so we need to attack quickly to free our soldiers. We must quickly get control of the situation, or this island will become one big trap for us.
Commander, we knew you would come.
No time for thanks. We must regroup and head for the airfield. Squad, go!
German airborne troops are fighting all along the coast. The island's defenses turned out to be tougher than we imagined. The enemy numbers are overwhelming, and British anti-air guns are shooting down our Junkers one after another. We must eliminate their air defense and gather as many troops as possible to attack the airfield. Once it's captured, our aircraft can start to bring in reinforcements, and that will help us further. To arms, soldiers!
Edelweiss, the runway is ours. Roads land.
Borg returned home to the warm, caressing sun and the tender embraces of his beloved girl. But 20 days of leave far away from the war quickly flew by. Then it was back to Berlin, where he was assigned to General Kruvel, who had recently been put in command of the 11th Panzer Division in Libya. After the charms of Crete, the desert landscapes cast gloomy shadows, but he had no choice, as the Afrika Korps was to become home to Günter Borg. In September 1941, Rommel's ambitions were held back only by supply issues. It was clear that until the port of Tobruk was captured, success in North Africa would be hard to achieve. Forces besieging the fortress town needed to be reinforced and resupplied, while the British presence in the Middle East was building up. On the night of the 18th of November, the Allies launched Operation Crusader to break the siege of Tobruk. The balance was swaying back and forth. Even despite the enemy's superiority in numbers, German and Italian divisions managed to maneuver and counterattack, inflicting heavy casualties on Montgomery's forces.
Herr Oberstleutnant, the Tommies are trying to break through.
The British have finally decided to attack. They outnumber us, but our positions are better and our 88mm guns can tear their tanks to pieces. We must try to keep the enemy in narrow passes, here and here. Hills will prevent the Tommies from flanking us, and a frontal attack would cost them dearly. Besides, we can count on the Luftwaffe for support. It is vital that we keep the British off the floodplain, or they will crush us with sheer numbers. I believe you understand the situation. Now go and teach that Cunningham a lesson.
The November battles had neither winners nor losers, with both sides receiving heavy casualties. But while the British managed to re-equip themselves relatively quickly, the Afrika Korps supplies left much to be desired. The Germans were forced to lift the siege and retreat to Tripoli, and the situation in North Africa became stable. During this time, Borg was doing paperwork and errands at Ludwig Kruvel's headquarters. However, peace would not last long, and during a routine flight, Kruvel's Storch was forced down by the British and he was taken prisoner. Meanwhile, Army Group Africa launched an offensive, with the Germans inflicting heavy casualties on the British and securing critical supply lines, forcing the Allies to pull the bulk of combat-ready troops to the Egyptian border and leave Tobruk guarded by only a small garrison. This played into the hands of Rommel. Having finally decided to launch another assault, he scheduled it for the morning of the 20th of June. The success largely depended on the surprise factor and the interaction of the Afrika Korps divisions.
Ha! The Desert Fox is retreating.
Well, Tobruk proved to be a hard nut for him to crack.
The time has come for decisive action. By 10 o'clock, our tanks will cross defense lines here and will enter the town. The enemy is waiting for an attack from this direction, so every obvious way of advancing will be mined. For this reason, we must force our way to the bay through residential areas. During the entire siege, the Tobruk garrison has survived thanks only to supplies delivered by sea. But now we will cut them off. As soon as we reach the coastline, we will move our artillery into position and open fire on enemy ships. The coastline is secure now, and we will attack the enemy defense lines. Those fortifications may be a real pain, so we'll need to act quickly and decisively. If we can take them down, victory will be ours. The enemy will be demoralized, cut off from reinforcements, and it will be easy to suppress any resistance. We will set out at dawn, and I hope to be watching the sunset from the walls of Tobruk.
Having captured Tobruk, Rommel had to make an important decision: dig into the existing positions and wait until the air forces and navy finished fighting in Malta, or continue to chase the retreating enemy without solid air support. He chose the latter option, and on the evening of the 23rd of June 1942, the Afrika Korps vanguard crossed the Egyptian border. After another 6 days of fierce fighting, the Germans entered Marsa Matruh, capturing a large number of guns, cars, and other military equipment. By this time, the resources of the Afrika Korps were nearly depleted, but this splendid triumph gave them hope of success at El Alamein. As it turned out later, the Allies not only held their ground, but even launched a counteroffensive, pushing the remains of the Panzer Army Africa back to Libya. German soldiers and officers were having a hard time. Forced by the superior Allied troops to retreat further, they were abandoning territories which had taken so much effort to capture. On the 12th of November, trying to evade the 8th Army, Günter Borg's division left Bardia and advanced to Tripoli, but the enemy was in hot pursuit.
Column, halt! Recon Squad Commander, come up!
The drying riverbed will not be a serious obstacle for our columns, but I wouldn't risk crossing without any recon. The place could make a good ambush. We'll send in a recon company and, if everything looks alright, we will cross the river here. If the settlement is already occupied by the Tommies, we'll have to find another route. The enemy is on our tail, leaving us no time to search for a crossing downstream. Indeed, we have no choice. The column must cross the river here as soon as possible, or we risk being surrounded, in which case this war will be over for us in a matter of days.
By the autumn of 1942, German forces were under pressure in North Africa, and the landing of Allied troops early in November worsened the situation even more. Within 2 months, the 8th Army captured Tripoli, and the remains of the Afrika Korps retreated to Tunis, to the well-defended Marais lines to join other Axis forces. The rainy season granted both sides a respite. It allowed Rommel to receive additional reinforcements and armaments from Italy, and the Allies had time to build support bases and establish communication lines, thus preparing for a decisive offensive. On the 20th of March 1943, the British attacked the Marais lines, while the Americans, under the command of Patton, launched an assault from the other flank. The German and Italian troops were trapped in the triangle of Tunis-Bizerte-Bon. Despite fierce resistance, it was clear that the Germans couldn't hold the springboard. Already by the end of April, the 18th Army Group, commanded by Field Marshal Harold Alexander, approached Tunis and engaged the defending troops at the Bay of La Goulette.
I must admit, I didn't expect the Tommies to be so assured. A couple of hours ago they literally swept through our outposts and are advancing on Tunis now. We were not prepared for this course of events, and now we must engage the enemy in the suburbs. Our command has mobilized all reserves. The troops are already being redeployed to this area, but they will not get here before the British. Still, there is some good news. An Italian destroyer is in the harbor, and its on-deck weapons will be an essential part of our defense. But considering the enemy's absolute air supremacy, the ship itself is vulnerable to air attacks. We established air defenses for this type of scenario, but we could lose them if British tanks break through our lines. The field command post will be established in this building. The radio will allow us to coordinate the defenses and stay in touch with the reserves. The Afrika Korps HQ is preparing to evacuate to Italy. If it's captured or destroyed, our case in the Mediterranean is closed. Until the command leaves the continent with all the archives, the enemy must not be allowed to enter the town center. I heard you were capable of accomplishing the impossible on the battlefield. Prove it to me once more.
Request to headquarters. I need reinforcements urgently.